Easter 2022. I took the full 2 weeks off, and I was going to go abroad initially, and I thought, why? It looks like it's going to be gorgeous weather, so I decided to do some exploring the island on the e-bike, on the motorbike, on the kayak and the boat, and finally at the end of the 2 weeks flying. Now this is a microlight Icarus. Now I did not like these previously when I used to fly Cessnas, simply because they seemed so fragile. They felt like tents with a hair dryer at the back. However, the power to weight ratio now has increased, the technology's got a lot better, the frames have got stronger, and you're enclosed now. Now this is 400 kilos fully laden with 100 horsepower, so again the power to weight ratio is fantastic, as we will soon explore. It has a stall speed of about 35 knots, that's just under 40 miles an hour. Absolutely incredible. It's usually about 65 to 70 for a Cessna. Now we are heading into about a 50 knot wind, however, even so the power to weight ratio is just incredible. The rate of climb is astonishing. You can see here we're already about 500-600 feet in about 30 seconds. This is not edited, I've not edited this out. This is incredibly quick little aircraft. Now I rode my motorbike, my 650 NT Yamaha there, to the airfield simply because it gets me in the mood. There's that gyroscopic precision into the bends, it's really loud, it's really fast, and I think it's just a perfect, almost a metaphor really for taking off, literally taking off. I flew with Aidan from Isle of Wight microlights. Absolutely excellent chap, really settled, really calm, which is just what you want in a skipper. The airfield is just round the corner from Sandown, really easy to get to. It does have an ATC, but it's generally manned by volunteers, so it's not 100% staffed. However, people are really friendly there. Now we've already reached 1,300 feet, and we've not even left the island. We're heading towards Portsmouth now, so from Sandown we're still cruising. Now the speed is incredible as well. We're now at about 70-80 knots I think, so the rate of climb is really quick. Now the plan is to head easterly rather to Portsmouth, towards Portsmouth anyway, and then up Hayling Island, or just on the south part of Hayling Island, and then we're going to turn through a full 360 and we're going to head in an anti-clock direction all the way around the Isle of Wight. Now I haven't flown in general aviation for quite some years now, so I'm trying to learn about the different technology that's moved on. This is trim, whereas trim is usually a dial, especially for the older planes, for the old Cessnas. Now it's all electronic, you just press a button and it's trimmed. Now we're going to get some turbulence shortly because of the rising drafts of warm air that are moving over land, between the land and the sea. However, right now it's perfectly trimmed, it's beautiful. Now, similar to my sailing navigation, I use an Avionics. The Avionics here is absolutely exceptional. It is perfect, and it also means it's less of a distraction. It's giving you details and data that you require. Now, shortly we will be going into restricted airspace, and so we'll have to reduce altitude once we're further up. We'll be about 3,000 feet. We're going to have to reduce below 2,000 feet when we go towards the Needles, because that's where the landing planes coming into Southampton Airport fly over the Solent, so it's actually restricted airspace. Now I'm about to take over. I have the plane, I have the plane. I am really nervous at this point. I've not flown for so many years, and I've only ever used a yoke. So to use a stick like this, and the other thing is it's so responsive, because the power to weight ratio is just astonishing for this kind of aircraft. I am really anxious, and obviously I overdo it. I over maneuver the aircraft, as you'll shortly see. The other technical limitation of microlights is the fact that it is visual flight rules only, that's VFR. Not only that, but there are also other limitations in what kind of prevailing conditions there are. However, this means that it's perfect for a beautiful day out like today. I mean, this is the only time I would choose to fly anyway. Another aspect to consider is also, because you're only under VFR, you have to look out for the general aviation, and the Isle of Wight is a very popular destination for general aviation. Already there are about 5 or 6 different planes that had landed at Sandown for people for getting a cup of tea or getting their lunch, I think they were, before flying out. The other thing is that the Solent is used west to east, particularly from the likes of Weymouth, Dorset, Wiltshire, flying towards, say, Kent. So this is actually a thoroughfare for general aviation, so you do have to keep your eyes peeled. The other thing is, well, with these kind of planes, you have overhead wingspan, so you have great visibility certainly beneath you, but just be very mindful of your altitude then, in therefore, because obviously if a plane is higher than you, you may not be able to see them, and they may not see you, especially if they have low wingspan. And the other thing to take into account is also helicopters, because it's quite busy for helicopters, both commercial and private. There is HM Coast Guard particularly flies around the Solent, but also they fly patients from St Mary's Hospital at Newport on the Isle of Wight to the specialist areas in either Southampton or Portsmouth. So in effect, you just keep an eye out, so don't be too distracted with how beautiful it is. I feel more comfortable flying now because I'm quite familiar with the area, with the island, and also with the mainland, with the coastline. That's simply because of all the sailing I've done. Another aspect though of flying is that when there are days when there's no wind at all, so there's no point sailing, there's no point motoring out. Certainly not my big old lug, because it'll just burn up too much fuel. So this is a perfect kind of balance. So when there's very little wind, then take a plane. Now we're heading to my hometown of Cowes, where I currently live rather. Now I've sailed this so many times up and down this estuary, the Medina. It's a unique view to have it in 3 dimensions from above. I think we're at about 2,000 feet now. Oh, we're just under 2,000 because we're coming into restricted airspace. So just dropped below 2,000. I'm continuing to drop in altitude. By now I'm beginning to feel a little bit more comfortable with the handling of the plane to hit turbulence. You can start to see the plane moving about. That's just the thermals, but because the thermals are usually over land, because of the wind direction, they're also moving over sea. So we'd want to go higher, preferably, and certainly by the time we get down to the Needles we'll achieve another 1,000 feet. But currently we're stuck in this space because of the restrictions, so we're being bounced about. However, like I said, it is very responsive. I'm still quite anxious, I'm still really quite nervous, but I feel more in control. I kind of get the gist of the actual stick and how to fly it. And now I'm beginning to build up a little bit of confidence though. What I would say is, at this point, I'm still not using any yaw, so I'm not using any rudder whatsoever. This is purely on the stick. Now, obviously, in time, I'll build the confidence back up to start yawing the plane as well. However, currently, in fact, all day, I only use the stick to actually manoeuvre the aircraft. Now, I sailed out of there many times. In fact, my boat's on the estuary up there, on the Medina near the Folly. I recall I recall racing around the island, doing the round the island race last year, and it took about 10 hours with a reasonable wind of about, I think it was 20 knots. So to fly around the island so quickly at, in effect, 70 miles per hour is just astonishing. We are still in restricted airspace as well, so I've got to keep it under 2,000, and significantly, I think I was about 1,700 feet, 1,700 feet, and we got called by a plane just on my right here on the starboard side. I think he was trying to tell us off a little bit, but we were nowhere near him, and we were about 300 feet below, but it was just a cautionary and cursory kind of comment. So reduced it down to 1,500 here, but we're not too far off Newtown Creek, which I think is where the restriction ends. And now my favourite anchorage on the island, Newtown Creek. It usually takes me an hour to sail here from Cowes, so to get here in a few minutes or 5 minutes is just incredible. Now my second favourite anchorage, albeit not on the island, is Hurst Castle, Hurst Castle on the mainland. Here we're approaching the Needles, which is the iconic place, the peninsula between the mainland and the Isle of Wight. Now at this point, he has the plane. Aidan's going to take the plane because I just need to do some filming. This is just incredible. So I've got some close-up shots, which I think I've got here. By the way, clearly we're talking on noise-cancelling Bose headphones. Now I'm filming this on the DJ Osmo Minicam, similar to the GoPro. It's the GoPro equivalent. I bought this because it's got a front-facing screen as well. Now this is on an iPhone, so you can see the quality difference. Now I've kept the volumes at the same, so you can see there is a distinction. However, it's the versatility with the iPhone. That's why it's so ubiquitous. It's always in your pocket, whereas my Osmo's not always in my pocket. I had previously asked Aidan whether it was okay to take the film as I'm doing. I feel pretty stupid with this, wearing this thing over my head, but it did take some great shots. Now, he said, not only that, absolutely fine. He's actually got stands all over the plane where you can put a GoPro or you can put an Osmo. Now we're heading just round to Freshwater. And this is where I actually cycled just the day before, I think it were, over the Tennyson Downs, Tennyson Way. I think I'm going to take over the plane again now, and just as we hit some pretty tough turbulence, I think I may have got it on film. I'm trying to keep a good look out here by looking around, trying to do a 360, but it's so distracting. I'm not used to being such a beautiful surroundings. I'm just used to endless fields and not quite knowing, I'm trying to identify places on the ground, but it's just so stunningly beautiful. Now we could see France ostensibly, but it was a little bit murky, a little bit misty to my right, so we couldn't quite see the mainland of France, so I couldn't see it anyway, but my main focus was general aviation. Just like sailing, there are so many apps now, there's so much technology that's so simple. One can just download it to your iPhone and you can work out meteorology, you could be texting people, you could be communicating even with ATC in this manner. It looks like I didn't take the footage, unfortunately, of the when we had a little bit of problem with the rising thermals. It had quite a bit of turbulence. It was very uncomfortable. I personally felt like I'd lost control of the plane. So we increased in altitude and we came above it, which was fine. It was beautiful flying back now to Sandown.